Hey guys, it's Melanie. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm doing the unboxing of the Once Upon a Book Club Advent Calendar or Advent Edition. I absolutely loved this box last year, and I will link my unboxing of that up here somewhere. But I loved it last year, and I'm so excited that they're continuing to do it, and I had to get it again this year. So it's too late at this point to order yourself one, but I thought this video might help you decide if you want to get one for yourself next year. This is a huge box, like, oh, and it's heavy, and I cannot wait to get into it. Okay, so opening it up, oh, look at that. So many goodies. All right, I'm gonna take a second to pull all these out and put them in order, and then we'll get to unboxing them. Okay, really quick, let me just show you how they look wrapped, and then we'll get to the booklet here. So the way that the normal Once Upon a Book Club books work is you read the book and you get to a sticky note in the book that says open your gift for this page, and you go in the box and you find the gift. But the way the Advent one works is you have like a little story, and you read the story, and then you open the gift for that story. And the way I do this is I'll read, let's see, I think we can do this in 3 videos. I'll do day 1 through 4 in this video, and then I'll do 5 through 8 in part 2, and then 9 through 12 in part 3. Okay. So here's what they look like. We have day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6, day 7, day 8, day 9, day 10, day 11, and day 12. So last year the way they did this was there was one story and then you had a gift for that story, but apparently this year they did something a little bit different, and the whole thing is one story with 12 days in it, and there's a story or a gift for each day. So let's start with day 1. If she could have just stayed on her couch all day with the book she was reading, she would have. Amelia tucked her legs under her as the sunlight filtered in through the window on that cold December day, warming her despite the chill outside. She pushed her glasses up when they slid down her nose as she fell into the story Christina Baker Klein created for her, avoiding the approaching start time for her workday. And it said to open your gift at that point. So we're going to go ahead and do that, and then we'll continue with the story. So opening the gift for day 1, it is A Piece of the World by Christina Baker Klein. So this is I guess a women's fiction. It's a fictional memoir of the woman in the famed Wythe painting called Christina's World. So that's what this is about. Okay, continuing on with our story. Falling into books had never been a challenge for Amelia. When she was younger, she could often be found in the corner of family get-togethers and birthday parties. Essentially, she was a tween with her nose stuck to a page instead of socializing with other kids her own age. While most parents may have been proud of their little bookworm, her parents did worry about her socialization skills and other similar things that parents worry about when their child chooses a fictional world over the real one. After several attempts of intervening at school functions and mildly harassing her to invite a friend or two over after school, they gave up. Most of these scenarios ended with Amelia running a mini book club of her own, or playing librarian and shushing the other kids as she continued to read whatever book she had snuck into the play date anyway. Now in her mid-20s and pursuing a library science degree, her parents had resigned and accepted that their daughter loved the worlds that her favorite authors created for her than the real one, and that was more than all right with them. Turning the page, her phone buzzed in her pocket. Without looking away from the novel, she unlocked her phone and opened a text from Natalie, a friend from book club, to ask her how she was enjoying A Piece of the World, which was the topic of discussion in their book club meeting next week. She locked the screen without responding, completely captivated by the plot playing out on the page. It wasn't unlike Amelia to be so absorbed in a book that she didn't notice what was going on around her. There was the time that she simply didn't hear the oven going off and only looked up when she smelled smoke. There was another time that she didn't hear her cat, Bennett, meowing until she herself had to use the bathroom, and she opened the door to find her cat had somehow shut himself inside. And there was even a time where she didn't hear the doorbell ring a half dozen times, and a new edition of Alice in Wonderland she ordered was left out in the rain by an annoyed Amazon driver. Amelia was not one to put a book down for much, which is why today was not a particularly unusual day. Her dark hair was pulled tightly to the top of her head, which is where it usually was when she was reading. Her glasses were perched closer to the end of her nose than normal, but that happened when she was too involved in the story to notice and push them back up. And her leggings were tucked into her usual pair of fuzzy socks that she wore around the house. Yes, today was a gloriously normal day for Amelia, and if only she remembered that she had a work shift beginning in a few short hours, it likely would have stayed that way. I think what I'm going to do is actually continue to read the entire day and then open the gift instead of stopping in the middle of the story. Day 2. Amelia couldn't say how long she sat there, engrossed in page after page, thinking the words, "Just one more chapter." But when she finally glanced up from the novel at the clock on the wall, she realized it was already 10 minutes to the start of her shift. She always hated that clock. No matter how many times she said it, it was always at least 10 minutes behind where it should be, consistently making her late for everything. Jumping off the couch, she sprinted down the hallway to her bedroom and threw open her closet door, pulling out a pair of dark jeans, a floral blouse, and black flats. Peeling off her leggings and tugging her jeans over her hips, she ripped the elastic out of her bun and tried to run a brush through her tangled hair while simultaneously pulling her flats over her heels. Pulling her hair into a messy ponytail, she charged into the kitchen, grabbed a cold bagel out of the fridge, fumbled with her purse and car keys as the bagel hung lopsidedly out of her mouth, and slammed the front door, startling Bennett awake enough to roll off the back of the couch. And pulling her car door open and throwing everything into the passenger seat, not including the bagel, which she still gripped with her front teeth for dear life, she turned the key and crossed her fingers as the car coughed and turned over in the cold New Hampshire morning. It was going to be time to retire her first car soon, but today was not the day to deal with that. Blowing on her hands as the car warmed up, she pulled a pair of black and white mittens out of her purse. She had thrown them in there a few days prior when the forecaster had mentioned the temperature plummeting soon, and she was incredibly grateful to her past self for paying attention. One of her favorite accessories, the top of each mitten was embroidered with an open book, as though reminding her of the pages she'd dive back into as soon as she arrived home. Unfortunately, she could not look at them as much as she'd like as she backed out of her driveway and headed toward town. While she did attend school in Keene most of the year, winter break had only just begun, and she was enjoying being back in her small town full-time. Clarksbridge was a tiny town of only a few thousand people, but honestly, most towns in northern New England weren't much bigger than that. The center of town was straight out of any Hallmark film, which made Amelia both roll her eyes and also love her hometown more than anything. Tiny one-floor municipal buildings made up their downtown, while a few off-shooting roads contained some family-owned restaurants and shops, a pet groomer's/veterinary office, and Maria Elaine's, the quaintest, most adorable cafe on the eastern seaboard, though Amelia had to admit she was a bit biased. Maria Elaine's is where Amelia was currently employed as one of their 4 staff members to help put herself through school. Maria ran the kitchen while Elaine ran the small handmade gift shop they kept in the lobby. Maria Elaine's was a staple of Clarksbridge long before Amelia had moved here during her sophomore year of college. Now in grad school, she'd gone from frequent customer to full-time waitress, while Maria and Elaine quickly became like a couple of aunts to her. Pulling into the gravel lot behind the cafe, she snagged her apron from the back seat and ran inside. Tossing her coat and purse in the break room, she avoided the look Maria threw her way as she ran into the dining room, pulled out a notepad and pen from her apron pocket, and headed for table 4. She had almost made it when Elaine came out of the storeroom to the left of the dining room, where they mostly kept extra napkins and silverware, as though she were waiting for Amelia to arrive. Without breaking her stride, Elaine whispered, "Thanks for working late," patted her on the shoulder, and continued into the kitchen. Amelia looked after her and heaved a sigh of relief. While she knew Elaine and Maria adored her, she still felt terrible whenever she arrived past her scheduled start time. Despite this, she was grateful that they always understood, and she was happy to work a little later tonight, as she turned and headed once again toward table 4. Okay, so opening the gift for day 2, we have the mittens. How cute. Oh, these are soft right there. Oh, and the whole inside feels like this. Oh, these are going to be super warm and cozy. I love them. They actually match my outfit too. These are so cozy. Nice. I like these. On to day 3. Welcome to Maria Lane's. I'm Amelia and I'll be serving you today. Our specialty today is, Amelia trailed off forgetting what day of the week it was as she scribbled table 4 at the top of the notepad. Gosh, get it together, she thought. She cleared her throat, getting her bearings. Our specialty treat today is our lemon poppy seed loaf, and our signature beverage today is our famous peppermint tea. Can I start you off with something to drink? She glanced up, expecting to see either a tour group who stopped on their way to a ski lodge further up the highway that ran past their little village, or a regular from town. She was not expecting a stranger to be seated here, alone. Peppermint tea sounds great. Would you mind bringing along a cinnamon stick as well? He said in a normal voice, not much of an accent to be detected. He didn't even glance up from the menu while rattling off his order, nor did she wait for him to. Absolutely, be right back, she said with a smile as she turned and headed back to the kitchen to grab the tea and cinnamon. She passed Maria at the register, who smirked at her as she tried to pass her without much acknowledgement. Good book? Maria called into the kitchen, knowing if Amelia was going to be late, there was a very good chance it was because of a story. So good, but I'm so sorry. I really need to get that clock fixed, or just set an alarm on my phone so this stops happening, she said over her shoulder as she poured the boiling water through the steeping mint leaves. No worries, sweetie, as long as you're reading. One thing that Maria and Elaine loved about Amelia was her love for books, something her parents had never really understood. While her parents didn't necessarily hate reading, they just didn't really go out of their way to find reading content they enjoyed. Walking into Maria Elaine's, it was evident that this place was for readers. Books of all kinds created a border along the ceiling, making the place seem even more cozy than it already was. Warm sunlight spilled through the dark wood-frame windows at all times of the year. A fireplace stood crackling in the rear of the dining room, surrounded by cozy chairs and a deep olive-green couch to enjoy your tea and current read, a space which Amelia's book club took advantage of for their monthly meetings. Even the small gift shop that Elaine ran was filled with items perfect for book lovers, from hand-painted bookmarks, screen tees and tote bags, and even kitchenwares designed with a splash of literary goodness. Being a place for bookworms was one of the many reasons Amelia loved working here. The kind of people this little cafe brought in were always ones that were easy to talk to about her current read, past favorites, or their own recommendations. It was a little home away from home, and luckily she got to work here. Grabbing the tea, she headed back into the dining room to the lone customer at table 4. He seemed engrossed in his book, so she quietly placed the tea with a cinnamon stick resting in the saucer in front of him, and turned to go wipe down the other tables in her section. "Could you make my order while you're here?" he called after her, annoyed. She turned, startled. "I'm so sorry. You seem so engrossed in your novel, I didn't want to disturb you. What can I get for you?" "A grilled ham and Swiss on sourdough, extra tomato, no lettuce, no mayonnaise, a dollop of mustard, pickle on the side, and a small portion of broccoli cheddar soup." He smirked as she hadn't taken out a notebook, as though he purposefully made his order as complicated as possible to trip her up. She smiled widely. Absolutely. Anything else? Could I change my bread to rye and swap the soup for tomato bisque? He picked his book back up before he even finished speaking, coldly ending his portion of the conversation. Of course. I'll be right back with that. Let me know if I can get you anything else. She consciously kept her shoulders relaxed as she walked back to the kitchen, not balling her hands into fists until after the heavy oak door swung shut behind her. What is it, mija? Maria asked from the other side of the kitchen, immediately sensing Amelia's frustrations. Just the joy of a challenging customer. Don't worry about it. She shook her head and shrugged. Could I just get a grilled ham and Swiss on rye, extra tomato, no lettuce, no mayo, a small amount of mustard, pickle on the side, please? Maria rattled the order back to her as Amelia got the plate ready on the counter for her and pulled down a bowl for the soup. She ran back out to take table 6's order, an older couple from town who stopped in every Wednesday afternoon. By the time she got back, Maria had the sandwich plated, pickle on the side and all, waiting for her to take it out to table 4. When she arrived, she placed the plate gently on the table, though she mildly wanted to slam it, and repeated his order back to him. Grilled ham and Swiss on rye, extra tomato, no lettuce, no mayo, a small amount of mustard, pickle on the side, and a small portion of tomato bisque. She stood back, hands folded in front of her. Can I get you anything else? She tried not to let her smugness seep into her tone, challenging as it may have been. He looked up and met her eyes for the first time since he had been seated. Deep gray and outlined with dark lashes, she was shocked when he kindly said, Everything looks great, thank you. She nodded and returned to table 6 to check on how they were enjoying their drinks and pastries. When she turned back toward the kitchen, he raised his eyes from the book in his hands and gave her a small smile. She glanced at the novel's cover for the first time, smiled back politely, and headed back to the kitchen for another scone for Miss Reed at table 6. However, table 4 stayed firmly at the front of her mind, as the man who smiled happened to be holding one of her favorite novels of all time. Saying goodnight to Maria and Elaine a few hours later, Amelia dug through her purse for her car keys. Finally, pulling her keys free from the depths of her bag, the small bookworm book charm she had hanging off her keychain caught the gleam of the street lights. Falling into her driver's seat and turning the key in the ignition, the car burbled and stalled, leaving the frost that caked her car windows intact. She leaned forward and rested her head against the icy steering wheel, contemplating whether to go back inside to ask Maria for a jump or to call the town tow truck when a slight tap on her window startled her from her thoughts and caused her to bang her forehead onto the steering wheel in surprise. Fantastic. And now we open the gift for day 3. Oh, cute. I love it. It's the keychain. How cute. Love that. Okay, so we're just going to do one more day and then we'll end this part because I know this video would be way too long if I tried to do this entire thing in one video. So, day 4. Rubbing her forehead with her frozen fingers, Amelia cracked the window a bit with the manual window crank and saw table 4's peppermint tea guy standing cautiously outside her window. Amelia glanced down to make sure the doors were locked almost immediately. Hi, she called to him through the inch the window was open, reaching to remove the keys from the ignition and hold them in her fist, as she'd been taught to do in that 2-hour self-defense class she took in high school. He turned to face her and held up his hands as if to show that he meant her no harm. Hi, sorry to startle you. I left my car parked here while I walked through some of the downtown, and when I came back I saw you leaving, well, trying to leave. I thought I could offer to help, if you needed it. He stood a few feet from her car and kept his hands where she could see them. I know, this is pretty much every scenario they tell women not to find themselves in, but it's so bitter cold out and I saw the owners lock the front door when I walked around the building, so I figured I'd make the offer. Well, that settled going back inside to ask Maria for help. She and Elaine were probably gone already, planning on coming in early tomorrow. Amelia eyed him uncertainly. Fine, I can't jump it on my own anyway. Keeping her keys firmly tucked in her fist just in case, she unlocked the door and stepped out. Awesome. Do you have jumper cables? I'll pull my car over here. He turned away to walk toward a sleek black sedan before she could answer him. Regardless, she did have cables, which she had pulled out of the trunk by the time he'd returned. Do you want to sit in the passenger seat while I jump this? It's freezing out and your fingers must be ice, he offered, motioning toward the defrosted windows in his car. He took the cables from her and hooked them properly to his car battery before heading back to her car to attach the other ends. Thanks, but I'm fine, she said, leaning against her driver's door. She was fine with accepting help, but she wasn't about to jump into a stranger's car, no matter how cold she was. She pulled her mittens on in the meantime. Don't worry about it. I'm new in town. Well, to any town for that matter. But I've heard being neighborly is the thing people do here. He glanced around the hood to see her leaning against the car. I don't bite. She took a few steps forward so he didn't have to lean around the giant piece of metal sticking up from her ancient Oldsmobile. He usually is. We're all pretty friendly here. Where'd you move from? Boston. But I grew up in Baltimore. Always been in a city, so this, he turned to point at the empty street of Clarksbridge, is so weird. You get used to it. It's nice knowing almost everyone, and there's always someone willing to help you out in a jam, she shrugged. While she only moved here a few years ago, she'd grown up in a town pretty similar to here. Small, quaint, everyone knowing everyone's business. Well, that's good to know. I guess I should start getting to know people in case I ever find myself in a jam. He said the last bit almost mockingly, which caused her to roll her eyes. Try it now, he said, ignoring her eye roll and leaning over the battery as she walked back to her driver's side. Turning the key, the car complained a bit, but begrudgingly turned over. She climbed back out as heat slowly began to pour into the cabin. Thanks again, I really appreciate it. She stuck out her hand to shake his. He glanced at it and smirked, raised his hand in a wave. Don't worry about it. Here. He handed her the bundle of cables as she dropped the hood closed. These belong to you. She took them and tossed them in the back seat, unable to deal with the reality that she'd probably need them tomorrow, too. She turned back to say thanks for a third time, but he had already climbed back into his shiny city vehicle and was pulling out of the lot, raising 2 fingers off the steering wheel in a very Bostonian kind of wave. She drove home in silence, other than her teeth chattering, half frozen but grateful for the warmth of her little ranch, pulling on 2 pairs of fuzzy socks for good measure and grabbing a book off her to-be-read shelves at random. She pulled the covers up to her neck and propped the book up onto her reading pillow. She noticed the little Love and Other Constellation prizes. After the events of tonight, she rolled her eyes yet again and let herself be taken away into the depths of the novel until she finally fell asleep, book still firmly in hand. So now on to the gift for day 4, which I'm pretty sure is a book. And that is Love and Other Constellation Prizes by Jamie Ford. And this says, from the best-selling author of Hotel on the Corner of Bitter and Sweet comes a powerful novel inspired by a true story about a boy whose life is transformed at Seattle's epic 1909 World's Fair. For 12-year-old Ernest Young, a charity student at a boarding school, the chance to go to the World's Fair feels like a gift, but only once he's there, amid the exotic exhibits, fireworks, and Ferris wheels, does he discover that he is the one who is actually the prize. The half-Chinese orphan is astounded to learn that he will be raffled off, a healthy boy to a good home. The winning ticket belongs to the flamboyant madam of a high-class brothel, famous for educating her girls. There, Ernest becomes the new houseboy and befriends Maze, the madam's precocious daughter, and a bold scullery maid named Fawn. Their friendship and affection form the first real family Ernest has ever known, and against all odds, this new sporting life gives him the sense of home he's always desired. But as the grande dame succumbs to an occupational hazard, and their world of finery begins to crumble, all 3 must grapple with hope, ambition, and first love. 50 years later, in the shadow of Seattle's second World's Fair, Ernest struggles to help his ailing wife reconcile who she once was with who she wanted to be, while trying to keep family secrets hidden from their grown-up daughters. Against a rich backdrop of post-Victorian vice suffrage, the celebration, Love and Other Constellation Prizes, is an enchanting tale about innocence and devotion in a world where everything and everyone is for sale. Interesting. All right. Well, that is it for the first 4 days of this Advent calendar. Stay tuned for part 2 where we do days 5 through 8. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give me a big thumbs up. If you'd like to watch more videos like this, click that subscribe button down below. And until next time, remember to always be completely you. Bye!